Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gonzales, and with me today I have my colleague Christina Perez, and we are both NJ4S educators working for Partners in Prevention. Today we're going to cover a topic under the NJ4S Tier 1 program called Overcoming Social Anxiety. So just before we dive into today's lesson, we're going to quickly go through the table of contents. So for number one, we're going to be defining what social anxiety is. For number two, we're going to break down what anxiety versus social anxiety is. For number three, we're going to be talking about experiencing social anxiety in different social settings. And then for number four, we're going to be giving helpful methods and resources. So diving into the lesson, what is social anxiety? Social anxiety is a mental health condition that causes fear and anxiousness when you're around people in social settings. So for example, if someone goes to an amusement park, they might feel that fear and anxiousness because they feel like there are others that are judging or watching them.
Okay, so going into more specific forms of anxiety, we have generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, or social anxiety disorder, SAD. So we know that it's normal to feel anxious from time to time because life throws curveballs and stress at us often. But when it causes excessive and ongoing anxiety that begins to interfere with daily life, that's a good indication that a person may be experiencing GAD. So not to say that people experiencing social anxiety disorder don't face anxiety, they do. Anxiety occurs in both, but the anxiety in social anxiety disorder centers around the social aspect. So with generalized anxiety disorder, there's an excessive worry over daily, future events, even finances that are not limited to that of social settings. GAD can develop in childhood or adulthood, and some symptoms might include fatigue, irritability, or irritable bowel syndrome, which is basically a disorder that can affect the stomach, cause some gas, diarrhea, stomach pains, as an indication that you're experiencing GAD. When it comes to social anxiety disorder, it could even be more of like a one-on-one anxiety, like meeting one new person or one new friend, meeting new people, but in social settings. The key here is in social settings, that's what causes the anxiety to arise in the person. Because that's when the fear of rejection comes into play, where something isn't actually dangerous, but they're anticipating something bad to happen. Or being bullied and abused can contribute to that feeling as well. Both GAD and SAD can increase chances of searching for outlets and potentially unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as substance abuse. And many people have social anxiety. It's such a common disorder. It's a mental health condition that can really affect anyone mentally or physically. Just as I mentioned, being bullied or abused can make it surface more. But most people that have it experience those kind of symptoms before they're even 20 years old. Women experience higher rates of social anxiety than men, though.
So touching more on social anxiety, there are different levels to it, right? There's mild, moderate, extreme. So diving into mild social anxiety, it's when there's physical and psychological symptoms present, but people will still participate in social events, right? This could be due to having like a friend with them, maybe a family member, someone that makes them feel safe and comfortable. Whereas moderate social anxiety is when those physical and psychological symptoms are still present, but people will only participate in some social situations while avoiding others. So this can be, for example, choosing a family barbecue over going to an amusement park, right? At a family barbecue, there might be less people, we know them all, whereas a social gathering such as an amusement park, we don't know people and everything can seem very scary all at once. Whereas extreme social anxiety, this is where panic attacks starts to set in, and people will avoid social situations at all costs. So just to cover over some social anxiety symptoms, people who have social anxiety will tend to blush, sweat, or tremble at times, depending on the social situation that they're in. They'll have a rapid heart race, meaning that their heart race will increase. It might feel like it's going like 100 miles an hour, right? They might feel like their mind is going blank or feel sick to their stomach. A lot of people will tend to feel nauseous. And then last but not least, they'll avoid places where there are other people. And most of the time, people will stay in their rooms, someplace at home where they're comfy and safe, compared to having to socialize out in public.
Now we're going to look at part 2 of our presentation, which includes school, sports, and recreation. These are places where social anxiety is really prominent. And then we're going to dive into some methods on how to cope with it. So the first area we're going to look at is social anxiety in school. So we know that with social anxiety, the individual tends to overly care how they're viewed by others. So when an opportunity arises to participate, they're not always the first person to raise their hands. A lot of teachers and parents might dismiss this as shy, but I think it's an important aspect to dive in on, especially if it affects day-to-day activities and increases an intense fear in the individual to the point where they're avoiding situations on a multitude. So we have like group projects, activities, any chance to participate and socialize, they might avoid. What could go wrong if an individual is doing this and not paying attention to their behavior? Well, they could get comfortable with not attending school or missing out on classes. They might not be present mentally in class, or their grades might be affected because of this. What can they do if they feel like this is happening to them? Well, they can talk to their teacher, they can talk to their parent about how they're feeling. And aside from that, they could get to know individuals in their class on a one-on-one basis. If the social aspect of it is more challenging, they can start with one person. And then we have social anxiety in sports, which is very similar because the aspect of I'm fear of I have a fear of getting rejection is still really present. So they might think to themselves, like, my teammate might make fun of me, I'm not going to do good on this, or I don't know what I'm doing, someone else is better than me. And then they might get stuck in that rut, which in turn affects their performance as a player and as a team player. They kind of get in this failure avoidance mentality, which is if they think they're going to fail, they avoid being in the situation at all. If they've made it into the sport, something has pushed them to make it into the sport, that's a good indication that their anxiety is easy to manage. So they might be experiencing like a more moderate or mild form of anxiety, but still to push through their social anxiety in general, they should also then talk to a guidance, a parent, or someone of authority.
So social anxiety and recreational. When we speak about recreational, it's important to know that it means leisure time, things that you do on your own time, right? I don't want to miss out anymore. A lot of people with social anxiety will tend to stay again in their rooms, someplace where they feel safe, and comfortable compared to being out in a social setting where they are sweating very rapidly or they have a rapid increase in heart rate, things that will make them uncomfortable, right? So it's always important to know that with recreational, um, so methods, you can still be you, just a better you. So with these methods, what we try to push is spending some time outside, right? But not necessarily in such a large gathering of people. So this can be spending time outside alone, right? Sitting on your steps, in the front of your house, maybe going for a walk around the block, maybe going to the corner store for some treats. Exercising. I know we can all exercise at home, but it's important to push for that public setting, right? So maybe exercising at a gym, where there's a little bit more people, meditating, not just spiritually, but things that could calm the body and the mind, right? So that can mean like painting, coloring, listening to music, things of that nature. And when we speak about journaling, we speak about being able to track your activities just so that you can later track what triggers you with your social anxiety.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a little more about creative activities that can help. So we have ways that can relieve stress. We talked about meditation. We also have deep breathing. any kind of coloring or drawing or building Legos or blocks that can help as well. Mike mentioned journaling, another outlet that you can use. And just having fun. Sometimes just some recreational time with friends and family can be a big help. When it comes to breathing, wait, when it comes to self-esteem, we can also look at meditation and yoga. Mike mentioned exercise, walking, sometimes just dance, not even any guided dance, just free dancing. Healthy eating, positive psychology. So looking in the mirror and saying like, I can do this. This is not going to be too hard for me. Any kind of positive self-talk can also help too with anxiety. And then helping focus. So getting enough sleep and healthy eating, that's number one. But we also have ways that we can physically breathe and count that can help refocus our minds. So before any breathing exercise, you have to breathe slow, deep, slow breaths, right? Then we're gonna look at, it's called the 3-3-3 rule. So you're gonna look at 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can see, and then move 3 parts of your body. You can start with 3 things you can see and then move to 3 things you can hear and then 3 parts of your body. We can also look at the 5-4-3-2-1 trick, which is 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It makes us really present, that we're still intact with our bodies and that we're in control. And lastly, just searching for a safe space. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical space, but if drawing a picture can mentally bring you back to a space where you feel comfort, that can help as well. When I was talking about the positive affirmations, our thoughts really affect how we behave, right? So I'm going to challenge you guys to come up with your own thought. So for example, mine is, thank you, anxiety, but I don't need you right now. We have other people that came up with their own thoughts. So I'll give you the 3 that I have here. I have anxious thoughts, but I also have the power to challenge and change them. My anxiety is a temporary thought and I am safe. And I trust myself to navigate through this stressful situation. All of the thoughts have the same thing in common, that the fear is something you can overcome.
All right, guys, so that concludes our lesson. But before we end it off, we just want to do a quick recap and provide some resources. So we spoke about social anxiety, right? And how it's a medical condition that causes fear and nervousness when you're around people in social settings. We broke down anxiety versus social anxiety, right? The difference between them and the similarities as well. Then we spoke about social settings such as school, sports, and recreation, and how these areas can affect um, our social anxiety. And then last but not least, we'll be diving into some resources.
Awesome. So who can I talk to if I'm experiencing any of the symptoms that they touched today? So a trusted adult, like I said in the school slide, a parent or guardian. You might not always feel like you can talk to your parent. So a teacher or guidance counselor is the next best thing. Usually they're trained in more mental health areas. If you don't want to talk to anyone you know, you can call 211 for mental health resources. If talking on the phone gives you anxiety, you can text your zip code to 898-211, or you can text connect to 741-741 for free. We thank you.
So thank you guys so much. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can let your teachers know, and we will try our best to get back to you. Thank you so much.